That's right. Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of America's team, the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Stars. And, of course, the official AC plumbing and heating of the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Eric Chiafalo alongside the Super Bowl winning scout, Bryan. And it's great to have you in as we try and put the pieces together on where the Cowboys stand right now. The injury bug brought us. I mean, what are we doing right now? Everybody's ankle is on high alert right now because we got dudes falling down left and right. We know about CeeDee Lamb. Then we get the news on Booker. And now we're not going to have BB and Booker for a considerable amount of time on the offensive line. And then we're trying to figure out how we're going to approach things offensively with George Pickens being the leading receiver. Or maybe I should say Jake Ferguson, because it seems like this offense right now is Jake Ferguson at the line of scrimmage? Boom, let's throw him the football. Broadus, what the hell's going on?
Well, Eric, you mentioned the injuries, and this is the unfortunate part of football. When things are kind of going bad, they really go bad, and it's injuries that you really, they're game action injuries. They're tackles being made, it's into the back of Lamb's, legs and stuff like that. Personally, I thought it was an illegal tackle. I might be way wrong about that, but it just seems like that the defender just kind of trying to get CeeDee to the ground. Just you could watch, just kind of throws his body and it just immediately I thought of the hip tackle. Immediately I thought of that, just how violent it really, really was. And then you talk about with Tyler Booker, 2 minutes left in the game, Dallas trying to drive, just get something. And unfortunately though, a Bears defensive lineman going for a tackle, stumbles, falls into the back of his legs. Now his ankle's hurt and he finishes the game. Next day I'm told he really can't walk very well, but those are the unfortunate things that happen in football games. And it seems to happen to you when things are going really badly right now. And, it appears you have some guys that are kind of trying to play through some things. We could talk about Diggs, and I'm not giving Diggs a pass. I'll give him a pass on the fact that he had no training camp. He really did. Now, but did he get back for the opening season game? Sure. And good for him. But man, this defense and the injuries and just, you could focus on the offense a little bit too. I know I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place, but you've got to take better advantage of what you were given with that Bears defense. Right or wrong. And I'm not looking at Dak Prescott and saying, oh, he's a $60 million quarterback and he has to do this. He is one of your better players. They need him to almost be perfect. And it's unfair. It really is unfair. But they need him to be perfect. They now need Pickens to be perfect. They need Jake Ferguson to continue to play and catch footballs and try and get first downs. The run after catch not looking great right now. But it's kind of where you're at right now with your team. You're just struggling in a lot of areas. And it just, as we mentioned, it just doesn't help when two of your better offensive linemen are just going to be sitting out here the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that the defense was a huge disaster versus the Bears and really has been the last 2 weeks. They saved face a little bit there in the second half of that Eagles game, but Giants and Bears really took advantage of you. But, man, it really was disappointing to see how the Cowboys offense was unable to – I mean, they racked up plenty of yards. They did some things well running the football, Javonte Williams, but not being able to score points versus that Bears defense, which was a total mash unit going into the game.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys had been really good on third downs. Dak Prescott throughout his career has been a really good third down quarterback. That's one of the things that you can look at when you're evaluating. Like, really good quarterbacks are consistently moving the sticks on third down. Dak Prescott is that guy. And unfortunately, the offense really couldn't do much on third down or in the red zone. That was like the two big issues outside of just the general issue, which was they weren't really pushing the ball down the field a ton in that game. Everything just felt like it was underneath and, hey, it's third and 15. We're going to throw the ball at the line of scrimmage to Ferguson. You have a couple of untimely penalties that make a 3rd and 3 into a 3rd and 8. Now all of a sudden things are a little bit more challenging. Maybe an offensive lineman gets beat. Dak's got to get the ball out a little bit quicker. There's a multitude of different things, but definitely now that the dust has settled, the offense was disappointing. And of course,
it was
when you lose Lamb in the middle of the game,
6 plays in.
Or early in the game.
Yeah.
That changes things. Is that going to be the last time we see CeeDee Lamb take a handoff out of the backfield? Is that the last time?
Yeah.
Is it only jet sweeps from now on?
Yeah, this is the argument, and I think you were a part of this argument we had. It was myself and Zach Wolchuk had this argument about, and it almost is like, do you use your best players as punt and kick return guys? This is the argument that I run into where I go, well, I'm just going to tell you, if you want to have this guy as your punt returner and he gets hurt, I can't replace him. And then I think yesterday or a couple of days ago, I would have been standing there at the Star if I was working in player personnel. And as Bryan Schottenheimer was getting his salad plate together there in the lunch line, I would have said, hey, coach, I just want to let you know that if you do that with CD again, I can't replace him. You just got to make a little subtle reminder that, but it is part of football, and that's what they believe, and they have no problem with that. But it is maybe when you have like the old Ezekiel Elliott running the football, maybe when that's your primary back, when you have really no running game to speak of, you do things to try and manipulate. We've seen for years, with Deebo Samuel, they finally got Christian McCaffrey. There was times where you saw these wide receivers play in the backfield and carry the football and be pretty effective at it. I understand trying to get the ball in your best players' hands, but I don't know if Dallas has to do that anymore. Not with Williams running the football the way he is. Let the runners be the runners and let the catchers be the catchers. But that's just unfortunate right there that they hand him the ball and then he gets hurt on the play.
Yeah, initially, and I know people were second guessing it immediately.
Yeah,
I was kind of on the side of Shoddy there, like, hey, you're trying to get your best players the football.
Oh no,
the more I think about it, it is fair to say, hey, there was a time where this offense was just grasping for anybody.
You
to
needed
do
that.
Something. You needed that.
Yeah.
And now with the way Javonte Williams is running the ball, I think the gadget guy, if you want to do something a little different, you do have Turpin. And we've seen Turpin be in the backfield, and he can rattle off some chunks, and don't want Turpin to get banged up either. But at the same time, he a touch more expendable, of course, than CeeDee Lamb. So, but at the end of the day, you want your coach to try and find ways to get your best players the football. That is probably just not one. And when you look back at throughout the last few years of where they've put Lamb like as a running back, like actually in the backfield as a running back, as opposed to handing him off like on a jet sweep or something, it hasn't really resulted in much. It's not like he's lined up as a running back.
Occasional first down,
maybe
6 yards, maybe 7 yards, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
it hasn't been as effective as putting Turpin back there.
Right,
Turpin's much more explosive. And not that Lamb is. I'm not acting like that Lamb's slow and carrying an anchor by any means, but I'm just saying with Turpin, you could see the explosiveness. With CD, it's more of a avoid, make somebody else miss, and then get out of bounds, kind of a 7 or 8 yard gain kind of a thing.
Yeah,
maybe that's where that is. It's not a big chunk play. It's not a 30-yard run or something like that. It's a play that could get a first down, but man, it comes at some risk for sure.
Yeah. So that was certainly disappointing, and now you're going to be without Lamb for the foreseeable future. We'll see how quickly he can rehab that thing. It was good to see him walking around, and but the next day he was in a boot. Not going to have him for the Packers game, and then the Booker thing. He's going to be out for the next probably.
Couple of games. Yeah, see, this is where, when you have, and talking to people in the organization, This is why, they can't really put a timetable on these two players because both of these guys are going to rehab to the best of their ability. They're going to fight through pain tolerance. Look at CeeDee Lamb. He played with a busted up shoulder the whole entire season. Every catch, every time he hit the ground, he'd come up and he would just crumple as he was walking back to the sidelines. And then he would kind of catch his breath and then be back out there to play. And so the pain tolerance and these two guys knowing how important things are to trying to get back, I think the Cowboys are going to have to protect the players from themselves with these two guys. So I didn't get any kind of timetable. The question is, if you put them on the IR to be recalled, that's 4 weeks. That's 4 weeks. And so, but maybe you could find a way, maybe you do miss a couple of games here with these guys and the pain tolerance and their willingness to sacrifice to be back out on that field.
So what do you think of now the offensive line, now that you've seen the all-22 and stuff? How's Hoffman at center, and what do you think they're going to do? Is it going to just be TJ Bass there taking over at right guard for Booker?
Yeah, if you remember, Eric, they the entire preseason, the guys that played really the most snaps on the offensive line, Hoffman and Bass played the entire game. They did. They just, one would play center, the other would play guard, and then at the end of the game, maybe Bass would play a little center, Hoffman would play a little guard. But that's kind of the direction I think they're going to go. Me personally, and we've talked about this on our program on 105.3 The Fan, is that maybe I would consider Nate Thomas at right guard. And I say that because I feel like the running game is important with the power stuff that you get up front. And I think it helps Steele at right tackle. And I say this is because the one thing Steele is actually pretty good at is the combo blocks to get push and then get to a second level block. And I just wonder if you've got somebody that's going to struggle to get push. I think Thomas just naturally has the body type and the surge. And then if you get Steele hip to hip with him, you get that push on these defensive tackles, and it kind of leads to their pull game. It leads to the game where they're able to like attack, and then the outside running game off tackle stuff. I think Spanford has been really good. I think Steele has been really good. Booker was really good, when it came to that push off that right side. And I just wonder if in fact that TJ Bass can be that guy. Is the running game going to suffer because you don't have that big body that's able to push, on that right side there? So I would surely consider Nate Thomas there, but I think they're going to go with TJ Bass just because of the things that I brought up earlier. He and Hoffman spent all 3 games of the preseason. They played the majority of the snaps throughout that. And I think they'll go with that as a first option.
Yeah, and Bass had some really good moments in the preseason for sure. So hopefully he can rock and roll. But Booker was playing really well. I mean, that's one of the things that sucks about this is man, he was moving people, pancaking dudes. He's already racked up a handful of pancakes in just a few short games to start his career. So it
him and Steele. Him and Steele were really, really good when it came to getting movement together. A lot of the plays, a lot of the positive, Williams is a tough runner, and man, I mean that has shown up, through the first 3 weeks of the season. But you have a tough runner paired with guys getting push like Spanford and Booker and Steele. Man, that's why your running game was kind of humming along there. Unfortunately, the game got out of hand where the Bears took them out of their running game. I mean, you want to look at a bright spot. That running game was something to behold. It's just a shame when it was 14-all. It's a shame that Dallas could never get the lead and then hammer the Bears with that running game. And it might be this week against the Packers. Now, the Packers good overall. They're Packers good against the run. We'll get into this. Packers good against the run. They're good against the pass. They pressure. This is going to be a real challenge for the Cowboys to attempt to run the football in this particular game. There was a time where Green Bay was really poor as a run defense. That's not the case anymore.
No, they've built, even losing Kenny Clark. They have some young guys in the interior that are really legit. So the Packers. We'll take a look at their offense here in a few minutes. Broadus has studied them up, and we'll see what they have to offer here. But just to close things down from a Cowboys offensive perspective, definitely the run blocking has been better than the pass protection. And Terrence Steele in pass protection, I'm concerned for him on Sunday night with these Packers. Guyton as well to a fair extent, but Guyton in the run game has had some really awesome moments. And now we'll see how things can unfold with Hoffman and with Bass as opposed to BB and Booker, and then Lamb. It's going to be tough sledding for sure.
Yeah, it will be.
This will be earn your money game for old Brian Schottenheimer and the offensive staff, huh?
It's going to be the strength where they need this team to be at its absolute best is at quarterback, at wide receiver, running back, and the offensive line. They need it to be. They're going to be in a lot of games where they're going to be, the heavy lifting is going to have to be on them, because this defense just right now is not anywhere where it needs to be. And funny, I was talking to a coach in the league about this, Eric, yesterday, and he's a guy that watches the Cowboys, film and stuff, and he told me, and if you give me a moment here, I'll just kind of go through what he said. And he said, listen, he says, I feel like the Cowboys kind of have an overinflated opinion of their players.
We like our guys.
Yeah, we like our guys. He said the corners are bad, the safeties are bad, and the linebackers are bad. Their best defensive lineman just got paid, and he's just average. And he's talking about Oso Digizua, Mm-hmm. And I'm like going, oh, okay. He says, man, the guy plays hard, but that's kind of where he's at. He thinks Diggs has been awful. He says Bland has been okay, what he saw. He goes, man, I think there's some things he absolutely love about him, but that's, he's clearly better than this coach thought he was clearly better than what Diggs was doing. But he says both safeties can't cover. He goes, he's not sure, why Clark is playing over Marist. He says Sam Williams is struggling with things, with the looks like the mental side of the game. And so, their scheme is not ideal. I mean, he was talking about the TD in the back of the end zone. It's kind of what he was described as a curl, flat, hook type of a defense. And he says, the coverage aspect, like I say, he went back and watched the tape, and he said, man, they're just not picking the right guys up, in certain coverages, like Hooker's responsible for number one. If there's an outside release by number one, I mean, this guy was going into all these details. So like I say, it's the defensive coach I was talking to, but it's tough. He says, man, he goes, it's tough. And he goes, earlier in the year, you heard, Stephen Jones. And I mean, I asked him the question point blank. I said, Stephen Jones and Matt Eberflus were talking about manufacturing pressure. This coach says, if you don't to manufacture pressure, you have to blitz. He goes, he's got to blitz more. He's got to just trust his blitz is going to get home. And, that's how you manufacture pressure. So this coach was somewhat critical of of what was going on, of the personnel and things like that. But I don't think he's lying here. I think we watched this tape and we kind of see where they're at, with their scheme and the way that the guys are playing right now.
No question. The defense is a problem, and we'll get into it here. You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast presented by the On Time Experts. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. And big love to the On Time Experts. Absolutely the best in the business, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And the Love of the Star podcast, we just ask that you support the people that support this show. Got my neighbor hooked up with the On Time Experts just the other day. He was dealing with some stuff. Boom, they came right out, took care of him at a high level, and he was a very satisfied customer. It's backed by their Stay Cool guarantee. Call the On Time Experts, and they'll come to your home the same day. Visit the ontimeexperts.com, click the Book Now button, and let them absolutely get it done for you in the best way. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. No excuses, no exceptions. The On-Time Experts, best in the business. So, wow, that breakdown from that coach there on the Cowboys defense was pretty dang spot on.
I think so too. Yeah, I was surprised. Like I said, there's coaches in the league that I know that study stuff, and I said, hey, and he's watched the Cowboys, as he's kind of getting ready for his own games. He's watching the Cowboys play too, so he knows what's going on. And that's again, that's an opinion. It's an outside opinion, but I think when you look overall, though, that the struggles that they've had, a lot of it has to be some guys that just clearly aren't playing to the level that maybe that I think the most telling line of the whole thing, he says, hey, it just appears to me these guys have an overinflated opinion of their players. That's a tough one to take, but it might be very, very true with the way that they moved on from Micah Parsons and stuff like that.
For sure. And you're seeing it now. Obviously, the Micah move they sold as making them better today, but we all know that was garbage. They were just trying to spin it and sell it to us. The Micah trade is a big picture thing. You hope over the course of the next 2 years they do right by the cap space, the additional cap space that they have, and then of course the picks,
the draft picks.
We'll see how they do with that. But as it stands right now, yes, you have little to no pass rush whatsoever. And I do appreciate what he says there about the Cowboys kind of overinflating the talent of their players. I want to blame Eberflus for plenty of things, but I would say the initial blame goes on the front office and the players that they handpicked for this defense. And some of them are just flyer guys. Some of them are guys that they've spent money on and given fair big contracts to, and they just haven't lived up to it. But from top to bottom, Eberflus doesn't have much to work with from a personnel standpoint, really at every level. Like, you trade for Kenny Clark, you have Osa, and I get what he's saying about Osa, but Osa's solid, and Kenny Clark has been solid for sure. Maybe your best pass rusher, which is a little bit crazy to consider. Certainly a really good run defender, but outside of your defensive tackle and Solomon Thomas as well, like, show some love to Solomon Thomas. That was a really good pickup. Yeah. And kudos to you, Broadus, because as soon as they signed him, we were all going, really, Solomon Thomas? And then you looked at the tape and you're like, actually, I think this dude can really do something. He's popped up in a big way, but the edge rushers, the linebackers, the corners, and the safeties, I feel like everybody's job should be sort of on the line. Like, nobody should really be comfortable outside of the defensive tackles right now in terms of their own playing time and what they're going to get here. So first blame goes to the Joneses and the front office for putting this group of players together on defense and thinking that was going to work. But otherwise, what would you like to see from Eberflus? You're talking about blitzing more. Like, he's blitzing at like an 18% rate right now. You got to be blitzing with these edge rushers and the lack of pressure. You got to be blitzing closer to 30% of the time. And
I would rather die the quick death than the slow death. I will say this, though, there has been some quick death in this deep passing game against the Cowboys. I saw a number where Dallas has allowed 415 yards of deep passes this year, just through 3 games. And that's the most, and I get a lot of my stuff through the Next Gen, through the team site. The Cowboys have a team site that they could go to that's really, really, really detailed. I appreciate Derek Eagleton putting me onto this. But yeah, it says that the Cowboys have allowed 415 deep passing yards through weeks 1 through 3. That's the most in the next gen stat era.
Ooh,
Through three games, the 415 yards. So
yeah.
how about this though? You mentioned about pass rush. This was another note that they had. It says their pressure rate without Micah is 8% lower this season than with him through 2021 through 2024. So they're down 8% on their pressure rate. I would have thought it would have been more than that, but
Yeah.
that's kind of where they're at. And also, too, this team is utilized the zone coverage at the highest rate this season. They played zone coverage 93% of their snaps this year. Now, we've asked them to play more man coverage and do things like that. It was the other day they played man coverage. The Bears were 4 for 4 with a touchdown for like 86 yards against man coverage. So the secondary, it's just any direction that you turn. And I think what we talk about, the coach that was, my coach, Gang of Seven guy, he was talking about the safety play and talking about the corners and stuff like that. But I think the safety play has just been a big factor for why some of this has come off the way it has. And I'm not washing my hands of the corners, because I do think there's some things that clearly that Diggs, Elam, those guys that, we saw a deep shot in the Philadelphia game to Dotson for 51 yards, and then you didn't see anything else. But then here come the Giants, and here come the Bears, and that's those man, you opened a whole new can of worms. Not being able to defend those deep passes the way they need to.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's a backbreaker right there. And that was the thing that was like the bad defense was on full display versus the Bears, because when the Bears wanted to just score in one play with 65 yards, they could do it. When it was a 2-minute situation and they need to go quick, hurry up, and work their way down the field efficiently, bang, they can do that and score a touchdown. When in the second half they just want to go ball control and just run the ball like 11 straight times and finish with a score, they could do that. It was just like everything was bad. There's not just one area at this point for the Cowboys defense. Schottenheimer's talking about how changes are going to be coming to the defensive side of the ball here. Scheme, personnel, we'll see what that looks like. But obviously, having Jadeveon Clowney play more than Sam Williams right now, I think, is going to be a plus. We'll see how much Clowney can really play in his first action on Sunday night. But of course, getting Deron Bland back will be good. And I guess that means, Diggs has been bad, but I think Kaiir Elam would be the guy that needs to take a seat. Reddy Stewart has been somebody that's been a little bit of a bright spot there at the nickel.
Around the ball. Ball.
So Deron Bland playing on the boundary, Reddy Stewart in the slot, and then I guess you rock with Diggs if he's healthy enough to go. If not, then it's Elam. But the linebacker stuff, I would like to see a little bit more Maris Leofau. Maybe you could activate the rookie linebacker Shamar James.
Sure.
Because these linebackers have just really not played that well. And then you mentioned the safeties. Why not see more Wanye Thomas, more Marquise Bell?
Right. I think that everything is up for debate. Everything is up for scrutiny. I think that you really can't leave no stone unturned when it comes to this defense. Eric, if I could real quick, just something about Jordan Love that caught my eye. We just talked about Dallas's, the 93% of zone coverage, which is the highest. And it would be the highest if they kept at this pace. It'd be the highest since 2018. But the problem that they've run into playing zone coverage is they've allowed almost 9.4 yards per attempt when in zone this year. That's the second most yards allowed in zone coverage. Now, the problem they're going to run into in this game is Jordan Lewis has been incredibly effective against zone coverage this season. He's completed 32 of 42 passes for 417 yards. He's got no touchdowns, no interceptions, but his 9.9 yards per attempt versus zone is the most in the NFL, and it's a career high for him.
Mm.
So this seems like this seems like something that you need to kind of think about. But what's going to happen is they're going to continue to play zone. They're going to just, but to me, I would consider, again, playing more man. The thing I've noticed the most about watching Jordan Love throw the football is and the Browns are very good up front. Don't get me wrong about this, but Detroit in the first game, the Commanders able to make some things happen. A lot of their sacks came on second down. So of 7 sacks, 4 of the sacks came on second down. So this might be a little bit of a trend for, they like to max protect. They like to max protect to the point of, and it's a killer way to doing this. They max protect, tight end stays in, and then releases, and now they get the ball with nobody covering them. That's just a killer way of running that stuff. It's a very effective way, but yeah, the trend for Love is to try and get to him like on second down, because what happens is he will throw off balance, and when he throws off balance, like his feet get crazy, he'll be really high or he'll throw the ball really, really low. And so, you got to find a way to kind of get some pressure on him and affect him in the pocket. And the Browns did a great job. And the Packers offensive line was a little bit of a mess in that particular game. They were having a struggle with moving some guys around, and like Zach Tom wasn't playing. He played in week 1, hadn't played the last 2 weeks. So they're trying to kind of Anthony Belton, Jordan Morgan, these guys are all, Jordan Morgan was a first-round pick in the 2024 draft out of Arizona, really nice player. They're playing him at guard, they're playing him at tackle, but people are getting after him and they're getting after Belton. We'll see what the health of Aaron Banks is this week at guard for them. I was watching Rashad Walker, the left tackle. He has his issues. So there's elements of this team that you can attack and go after. They're banged up at receiver. They're really, really good at tight end. That's where they're really, really good. But there's elements to this game that you feel like, okay, well, we've talked about it against the Eagles. We talked about it against the Giants. We talked about it against the Bears. You got to find a way to take advantage of some of these things. You can't just let people feel comfortable playing against you. And the defense is doing a really good job of letting quarterbacks feel comfortable playing against them.
You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast, Love of the Stars and Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast, presented by the On Time Experts. And call the On Time Experts. They'll come to your home the same day, backed by their Stay Cool guarantee. Visit theontimeexperts.com and click the Book Now button. You will pay less over time. They correctly diagnose your issue and fix it right the first time. Same day or you don't pay policy for certain repairs. 100% satisfaction guarantee. No excuses. No exceptions. Okay, so yeah, as we continue to look at this Packers offense here a little bit, we know that, this is the boogeyman team. When they come to AT&T Stadium, it doesn't matter how good the Cowboys are playing. It doesn't matter the situation. The 2023 playoff loss last time they were at AT&T Stadium is as bad of a loss as we can all remember. And now the Cowboys come limping in, and the Packers just suffered their first loss, and it was at the hand there of the Browns, who play phenomenal defense.
Great defense.
They're gonna be coming in a little bit angry, and of course, it's the Micah return game. We heard from Jerry Jones there will not be any sort of Micah tribute video or anything like that, which I think is totally fair. He wasn't here long enough, and that ended a little bit nasty. And he said, "I don't want to be a Dallas Cowboy. Please trade me." Like that, that's not a guy that I'm going to be going ahead and giving. And I still want him to be on the team. Don't get me wrong. I wish they wouldn't have done the trade. But at the same time, I totally understand that they're not going to give him the tribute video. He says it's going to be painful to sack Dak Prescott. It'll be an emotional night for sure. But, man, I don't know how anybody can be comfortable with this particular game. Like when we have our game mantras, Broadus, like partially this is a shoddy earn your money game, given the situation, but it's also just a don't get punked game. Don't get
Yeah.
embarrassed, like just try and find a way to look respectable. But at this point, with all the injuries on the offense and the way the defense has played, I don't know how you could think this is going to be anything other than an extremely long night.
Yeah, it's got the makings of that, but as I like to say, and I'm going to get a T-shirt made for this, the NFL is a strange lady,
Yes,
and you
she
don't
is.
know, you think you have an idea going into a game what potentially could transpire, and then all of a sudden the flow of the game starts and a team finds something. There's turnovers. There's a drop on the outside. There's an overthrow. There's a sack fumble. I mean, that game, if you want to talk about how early that game turned around for the Bears, is they're getting the ball driven on them, and all of a sudden Stevenson makes a hell of a play coming up and taking the ball away from Williams. Dallas had a really good opening drive, and all of a sudden, boom! It's the Bears had been a team that had been that had scored on first possessions, one of the better teams in the league. Dallas gets a 3 and out, negative yards on the series. You're thinking, all right, punt the ball, and now Dallas is moving the ball. You're thinking, oh, this thing's got a shot to being, but then the game turns around. So yeah, you just don't know. Does it look bad? Yeah, it really does. Could the Packers coming off a loss? Could it be a game that kind of a wake up call for them? Yeah. What it showed me though is if you get after Green Bay's ass pretty good on and take advantage of some of their injuries on their offensive line, you could hold Jordan Love in check. Browns did a great job of that. The yards, the passes down the field, everything about it was just perfect the way they played. And it came down to a blocked field goal, and then the Browns getting their own field goal. So might be one of those games. I mean, I'd love to believe that Dallas could come in there and without CeeDee Lamb and without Booker and without BB and find a way to manufacture some offense, because that's what it's going to take. But it's also going to take a little bit of getting after Jordan Love in this football game. Dallas can't just allow the Packers to go up and down the field on them. There's just that's the recipe for disaster, and we saw that in that playoff game in 2023.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to be doing some blitzing. You're going to have to be doing some simulated pressures.
You have to do some unorthodox things. You maybe have to just kind of throw the kitchen sink at him and see what works, and then go from there. But if you sit there and play zone all day, this will be as you mentioned, this will be a long night.
Yeah, and you have the familiarity, of course, with Eberflus being in the NFC North with the Bears for many years, and so Matt LaFleur and Eberflus know each other pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see what Eberflus can try and dial up here. But at this point, we're kind of in the no bad ideas portion of the program, where it's just, hey man, throw different stuff around. We can't just be doing the same thing with the same players, especially versus a Matt LaFleur offense that is that just got kind of stuck in the mud versus that Browns defense over the weekend. They're going to be coming into AT&T Stadium, a place that they have dominated in many times over the better part of the last decade plus. And so we'll have to see how Eberflus approaches it. But anything else you feel like we need to know about the Packers offense in particular, who's their go-to guys? I know they got Matthew Golden out of Texas at wide receiver in the first round, Dobbs at wide receiver, different guys like that, and then Tucker Kraft, of course, at tight end.
Yeah, you're right. You mentioned all those guys. I actually feel like the strength of this team might be what they have at tight end. And no disrespect to Dobbs and Golden and Wicks and those guys, but man, this Tucker Kraft, and I mentioned it earlier, it is devastating. Last week we were talking about maybe Caleb Williams' ability to run to be an X factor in this game. The Packers and the way that they use 12 personnel or use their tight ends as blockers and then have them release and find space, it is devastating the way that they play. Their tight ends play up the seam, much like what we saw with Ferguson. This quarterback's not afraid to throw the ball over the top that way. And I just feel like that how you handle Tucker Kraft in this game and Luke Musgrave and others, John Fitzpatrick, they get their tight ends involved in their offense. And, Dallas has got to prove that, hey, hold up on the outside against Dobbs and Golden and Wicks if you can. But then when they get in those 12 personnel packages, can't let tight end delay kill you. If you're in coverage, keep an eye on Kraft, number 85, and surely keep an eye on guys like Fitzpatrick as well, number 86, because they showed up a lot in the 3 games that I studied last night.
Well, I mean, honestly, it makes me kind of think about the Cowboys offense a little bit. Like, we probably need to see more Brevin Spann-Ford.
You need, yeah. I mean, this is going to be one of those games where I think Green Bay going in is like the 4th best run defense in the league. Their real strength is rushing the passer. So somehow, some way, Shoddy needs to come up with a game plan that moves the football, gets you in position to finish drives, whether it's touchdowns or field goals. Dak has been really, really good with the play action stuff. So to me, that's kind of where this thing needs to go. Trying to establish some type of a run, even if it's 3-4 yards. It's gonna be some muddy, hard, tough yards, but they need to kind of just keep after it, and then don't let Green Bay rush you. Don't let Green Bay just sick their defense on you. You find a way to kind of stay ahead of the sticks, kick field goals, get finish drives with touchdowns if you can, but hold the ball by running it, play action game, and then stand ahead of the sticks and converting 3rd downs. This could be a key when Dallas just can't get in those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8s. It's just going to be hard for them to be able to handle. They've got the Packers have a package, they call their cheetah package, and it's with Parsons, it's with Gary, Van Ness, all in the field. They've run this package 22 times. 16 times they've run this package on 3rd downs. That's 3 pass rushers that can kind of get after you. And with a compromised offensive line, you don't want to see them getting that cheetah package the way they're playing.
No, we need a cheetah-free environment on Sunday night at AT&T Stadium.
No cats.
Sure.
No cats.
No cats. All right. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of the Love of the Star podcast presented by the On Time Experts. We'll be back here in the coming days previewing a little bit more of that Packers defense and really just a full-fledged game preview before they hit the field on Sunday night. Thank you so much to all of you that support this show and listen, whatever you're doing, working out, driving to work, sitting at home, at the Chinese buffet, watching on YouTube, the Brada special, however it is that you consume us, we greatly appreciate you. And we'll be back here Friday or Saturday with a game preview. Until then, be well.